Hey everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Viking Spin. I'm your host Jason, and today we're going to get to some quick hitting Viking news, and then we're going to get into our 5th version of the mock draft, and this one is going to actually have trades in it. We haven't had trades before in our previous mock draft, but we're going to get crazy today and do some trades here in this mock draft version 5 from Viking Spin. The first of the quick hitters, the Vikings signed Case Keenum as their backup quarterback to Sam Bradford for 2017. It was a one-year deal for Keenum. Keenum is a guy, he's got some experience. He started his career several years ago with the Houston Texans, and he's spent the last couple of seasons with the Rams. Keenum has been both a backup and a starter in his career. He's got a live arm. His career quarterback rating is around 78, 79, somewhere in between there. So he's a guy that if your starter goes down for a couple of games, he's someone that's going to come in and not be terrible. So I think the Vikings were not quite comfortable with Taylor Heineke as being the primary backup. So they went out and got Keenum, who's got some regular season game experience, and I think that was a smart move for the Vikings here to get a dependable backup, especially with Sean Hill now contemplating retirement. And we saw that Hill in the one game that he played last year in the opener was it just looked like he had lost a lot of arm strength, and wasn't heading into this season. I think 37, 38 years old just wasn't quite what the Vikings were looking for anymore at the backup spot. So that was addressed there. Some bad news though for Sharrif Floyd. Looks like his career is probably going to be over. He's got nerve damage in his knee, and that now creates a new need for the Vikings at defensive tackle. So we're going to get to that, addressing that need here when we get into the mock draft. The other quick hitter was Mike Zimmer saying that the Vikings needed a new attitude in the running game, and I couldn't agree more. The Vikings were able to pass the ball last season, but the running game was absolutely abysmal. Most of that was due to, of course, losing Adrian Peterson for most of the season, and even more so due to the fact that they had so many injuries on the offensive line. 5 left tackles alone were started last year for the Vikings, so it was just unprecedented with the O-line injuries. But the Vikings went out and signed Riley Reif and Mike Remmers, 2 guys that have been more durable in their careers and consistent. So I do expect that to improve dramatically, and the Vikings will also have an opportunity to add to that in the draft as well. With that said, let's get right to the mock draft. Like I said, this one we're going to do trades, so right off the bat, I'm looking to move up in the second round. I'm looking to move up about 9 or 10 spots. So I trade, and just to put this into perspective on what we start off with, the Vikings start off with a second, 2 thirds, 2 fourths, a 5th, 6th, and a 7th. So I trade a 2nd, 4th, 5th, and a 6th, and I get a 2nd and a 7th in return. So I move up 9 or 10 spots and select Malik McDowell at defensive tackle. And McDowell is arguably one of the most talented defensive linemen in this draft. I would be ecstatic and excited to see what Mike Zimmer and defensive line coach Andre Patterson can do with a guy like McDowell. I mean, we've seen what they've been able to do with Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter. And can you imagine McDowell playing on the same line as Griffin, Hunter, Linval, Joseph? This guy would be an absolute beast. And then you still got Brian Robinson, Tom Johnson, and Dayton Jones coming off the bench for depth. I mean, the Vikings defensive line was already great, but it could be scary great with a guy like McDowell added. So we address the vacancy there left by Sharrif Floyd with if he's available at that point, I would say is probably the best player available on the board anyway. And then we go into round 3. I look to recoup some of the picks that I had to give up. So I trade down, but remain in the 3rd round. But I trade down about 21 spots in the 3rd round. So I trade a 3rd for a 3rd, 4th, and a 5th. So with that lower 3rd now, I take Pat Elflein at center. And that allows the Vikings to move to Berger to right guard. So we solve the right guard vacancy and solidify the center position there, and now we have our starting 5 offensive linemen. Elflein, he and Ethan Postage were regarded as the 2 best centers in this draft, and we get one of them there and solidify the interior of the offensive line. So now we're controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, which is hugely important, and it was probably one of the biggest reasons that the Vikings barely missed out on the playoffs last year, because like Mike Zimmer said, those close games, 6 games they were 4-2 in 2015 because they were controlling the line of scrimmage and had a run game and were stopping the run, whereas last year, with all the injuries on the offensive line, they weren't able to control the line of scrimmage. And then the injury to Sharrif Floyd, they weren't able to control the line of scrimmage on defense in the run game. These are things that would be addressed with those first 2 picks and get the Vikings back on track in those close games especially. So then with my final 3rd round pick that we already had, the Vikings, I have them taking Gerald Everett, a speedy, seam-busting tight end to go along with Kyle Rudolph and David Morgan. That'll add another weapon and allow the Vikings to run more 2 and 3 tight end sets. Actually, Everett is a big time speed threat. It's like having an oversized wide receiver at tight end. Can cause a lot of matchup problems for opposing defenses, and I think that'd be a weapon that Sam Bradford would certainly like. And then in the 4th round, we go with Kareem Hunt. We get our running back, number 2. And so we get Hunt to go along with Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon. Hunt is a downhill one-cut runner with the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. Decent pass blocker as well. And Hunt would be a nice a nice complement and depth piece there for the Vikings at running back behind Murray. And then in the 4th round, with our second 4th round pick, we take Elijah Lee at outside linebacker. That would immediately fill the void that Chad Greenway left on the weak side. At worst, Lee would compete with Emmanuel Lamore, but I think Lee is good enough to come in and start. And he's probably one of the better cover linebackers in the draft. A sideline-to-sideline player. So, a guy with some speed that can match up against tight ends, and I think that would just be a really nice pick there for the Vikings, given 3 athletic linebackers with Lee, Hendricks, and Barr. And then in the 5th round, have the Vikings going for an offensive tackle, Connor McDermott, who would come in and compete with Rashad Hill for the swing tackle spot. McDermott, 6'8", he's got a lot of physical tools, but probably needs to be coached up a little bit. Played on the left in college, but projects on the right in the pros. And then the last 2 picks here, these are the 7th round picks. The first 7th round pick, I would have the Vikings going with quarterback Cooper Rush. This is a guy that could compete with Taylor Heineke for that 3rd quarterback spot behind Bradford and Keenum. Never a bad idea, to take a developmental quarterback in the draft, in my opinion. So the Vikings do just that there. And then with their final selection in the 7th round, final selection of the draft, Austin Rico, punter. The Vikings have an opening at punter right now with Jeff Locke leaving for Indianapolis. So it would be really nice to get a starter with your last pick of the draft there. And the Vikings, I have the Vikings going ahead and doing just that. So that would wrap things up there, but of course you can see the theme with this mock draft, our previous mock drafts, and the talk that's been coming out of the Vikings organization lately, with Coach Zimmer. The main theme, the common theme, is that they want to control the line of scrimmage on offense and on defense, because you can have great skill players, but if you're not controlling the line of scrimmage, you don't have the offensive line or defensive line, it really doesn't matter. You look at the teams that made the playoffs and even that went into the Super Bowl last season, the same thing, offensive line. Whether it was the Patriots, the Falcons, the Cowboys, Green Bay, they were on the offensive line, they had people that were giving their backs and quarterbacks the holes and the time that they needed to make the plays. So I think that's what the Vikings want to get back to. They've had success when they've been like that, of course, and I expect that this draft would definitely allow them to get back to that spot. And then when you look at what the Vikings were able to do last season with Sam Bradford, an interesting thing is, we all know that he broke the completion percentage record, but he was also the best quarterback for passes over 16 yards. So when the Vikings had time to throw the ball, he was great. And then past 20 yards, he was third overall. So Sam Bradford was accurate whether he was throwing short or throwing deep. It's just that we didn't have the opportunities to throw deep as much as we wanted to. But when we did, he hit them. So that's why I think, helping this offensive line, what the Vikings have done in free agency, and then what they can do in this draft early on to solidify the offensive line. Of course, you're going to have a better running game, and when you have a better running game and better pass protection, you're going to allow your quarterback a lot more chances to go down the field. And we have a very accurate quarterback in Sam Bradford, with some talented wide receivers in Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, and one of the best tight ends in the game in Kyle Rudolph. So the more opportunities that you can give those guys to make plays, I think the Vikings are definitely going to be able to score more points. And I think if you add a guy like Malik McDowell to the defensive line, you're going to make life easier on the secondary, and that can help guys like Mackenzie Alexander, who they're trying to develop. It could make their life a ton easier. It could make things easier on Andrew Sendejo, so and Trey Waynes, and obviously Terrence Newman, Xavier Rhodes, Harrison Smith, the entire secondary. You're going to make their life a lot easier. So that's the theme here. Let's attack the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and I think that's going to translate into wins. So I do thank you guys so much for tuning in again. Feel free to leave me some comments, or if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, Viking Spin. Once again, I'm your host Jason, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bye-bye now.